Go home, you broke, jobless old lady. What's the deal with you coming on this trip for free? I was utterly disappointed with my family, as usual. I'll show you all what hell looks like. I decided to take action against them. While enjoying some alone time away from my family, my brother called me. Hey, what did you do, sis? My name is Lucy, a 30-year-old office worker. I've been dating someone for about 3 years now. His name is Alan, a true gentleman who treats me well and cares for me deeply. We initially met in college. He was my senior, and I often sought his advice whenever I had work-related concerns or personal issues. Each time, he listened attentively and offered sound advice. After becoming working adults, we continued to meet up regularly. One day, he confessed his feelings, and we started dating. Since then, our relationship has been going smoothly, and we've been enjoying our time together, contemplating marriage in the near future. Then, one day, Alan proposed to me. Lucy, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me? Yes. And so, we decided to get married. We immediately informed our families about our engagement. Nice to meet you, I'm Lucy. Oh, finally, we meet. Huh? I've heard so much about you from Alan. You're just as cute as he said. I don't know about cute. Come on, have some confidence. Come in, come in. Thank you. Alan lost his father a few years ago, and now only his mother-in-law-to-be, Mil, lives in his family home. I was anxious about whether I'd get along with her, but she turned out to be incredibly kind and wonderful. We had a delightful conversation over tea and snacks. Lucy, you're such a wonderful person. I'm so happy you're going to be Alan's wife. Mother-in-law showered me with compliments. Something I wasn't used to, leaving me a bit flustered. I'm looking forward to your wedding. See you, Mom. Thank you for today. The meeting ended on a positive note, and I felt relieved. But next, I had to introduce Alan to my family. A thought that instantly brought me down. The reason is, I don't really like my family. The root cause lies in how my parents treated me since I was a child. Both of my parents excelled in sports. Mom was into track and field, and Dad was a soccer player. They were so good that they got into college on athletic scholarships, and naturally, they expected their children to excel in sports as well. However, I didn't have the athletic ability they hoped for. My parents always wanted me to excel in something, so they had me try out various sports. I remember doing basketball, swimming, table tennis, and even figure skating. But the truth is, I was never athletically gifted. I was average at best, and that wasn't enough if you wanted to be top tier. My parents were clearly frustrated. Then my brother Kyle was born. With high hopes for a boy, they also got him into sports. Turns out, Kyle had a knack for soccer. When the local youth coach said, "This kid's got talent," my parents were thrilled and shifted all their attention to Kyle. Kyle is truly a genius. Our child is definitely something special. Their words implied that I was the exact opposite, a disappointment. They favored Kyle in everything and acted like I didn't matter. Even as I grew older, into middle and high school, they never paid me any attention. I focused on my studies and did well, but they said, "Being good at studying is meaningless," dismissing my efforts. When I wanted to go to college, they told me they couldn't afford it, so I used scholarships to get by. Meanwhile, Kyle continued to excel in soccer and even got into high school on a soccer scholarship. My parents were ecstatic. "He's definitely going pro. We can do anything for Kyle." Growing up so adored, Kyle started to look down on me. "Lucy, you're such a loser and a jinx. Even Mom and Dad don't like you. If you weren't here, they could invest more in me," "You're such a burden." Kyle would often insult me like this. And my parents never corrected him. "You really are a burden. Wasting money on you is what they mean by unnecessary expenses." Hearing this from my own family crushed my self-esteem. I managed to get into a decent college and landed a job at a well-paying company, but my self-worth remained low. And my achievements were always overshadowed by Kyle's successes. He got into college on another soccer scholarship. And my parents were prouder than ever. By then, I was already working and struggling to pay back my student loans. Kyle was still living at home, showered with love, attending college, and playing soccer. But the path to becoming a pro wasn't easy. In the end, Kyle couldn't go pro and had to find a job. Still, my parents were proud, and Kyle continued to live happily at home. Every Christmas, when relatives gathered, my parents forced me to attend. They'd introduce me as their disappointing daughter, and Kyle as their pride and joy. But Lucy is doing well, she has a stable job. Even when relatives said, No, Kyle is much more impressive," my parents would brush it off. Seeing this, I was always disheartened. My family treats me like that. At some point, I stopped participating in Christmas gatherings. I stopped attending family gatherings and hesitated to introduce them to my fiancé, Alan. Alan knew about my family's attitude but still wanted a family meeting. So, after years, I decided to go back home. I called Mom to tell her the news. "What? No, how are you?" or "It's been a while," just a cold response. It's awful that he treats me like this, even though this is the first time I contacted him in several years. "What do you want?" I'm getting married." "So?" My fiancé wants to meet the family. Can we arrange that?" "Why should we go through such trouble? Just get married on your own." That's it. I was disappointed by Mom's coldness. But then I heard Kyle's voice. "Mom, who are you talking to?" "It's Lucy. She wants to have a family meeting because she's getting married." "Really? Sounds fun. I want to see how lame her guy is. Let's invite them." "If Kyle says so, then fine." Then Mom told me. "All right, you can come for the meeting," she said. I was feeling a mix of emotions after overhearing a conversation between two people. Still, they mentioned wanting to greet me, so I decided to visit my family on my next day off. Be prepared, they might treat you horribly. "Yeah, I get it. But if that phone call was any indication, you've got quite the family, huh?" "This isn't a joke. I've had a tough time with them." Sorry. But if we're getting married, I want to meet your family. We'll make it quick and leave." "Okay." And so, we drove to my family home. No one came to the door when we rang the bell, so I used my key to let us in. Upon entering the living room, I saw my family sitting on the sofa. I was surprised to see an unfamiliar young woman there. But first, I thought we should say hello. "Hi everyone, it's been a while. This is my fiancé, Alan." "Nice to meet you all." As I introduced him, my family looked at Alan. "Wow, I thought Lucy would bring home some boring, unattractive guy, but you're actually decent." Kyle started off with a rude comment, making even Alan chuckle awkwardly. "Kyle, who's that woman next to you? Your girlfriend?" I was annoyed that Kyle had brought an unrelated woman to a family meeting we'd scheduled in advance. Then Kyle dropped a bombshell. "She's my wife, Mia. We've been living here since we got married." "What? Wife?" I was so shocked my eyes widened. "Wait, you got married?" "Yeah, last year." "I had no idea. I raised my voice, and Mom looked annoyed. You're so nosy. It's none of your business if Kyle got married. I was stunned. Kyle had gotten married without telling me. I was frozen, absorbing this shocking news. When Dad spoke to Alan. I'm not interested, but what do you do for a living? You're marrying Lucy, so it can't be anything impressive, but let's hear it. I snapped back to reality at Dad's words. I couldn't let them belittle my fiancé. As I clenched my fists in anger, Alan gently restrained me. I apologize for the rudeness. Here's my card. Alan handed his business card to Dad, who looked at it dismissively at first, but then widened his eyes. You're a lawyer? Dad exclaimed, and Mom, Kyle, and Mia were also surprised. Wow, this is amazing. Elizabeth, get some tea for our guest. Right, I'm on it. Wow, a real lawyer. So cool. My family's attitude changed instantly. Even Alan was surprised. I never thought Lucy's fiancé would be a lawyer. You should have told us sooner. Is your salary really high? Buy me a designer bag for my birthday. I was dumbfounded by my family's shameless comments. Mia was especially audacious. And to think she could say such things to my fiancé, Alan, upon first meeting him. Alan was responding with a wry smile. Moreover, you can't say such things to my fiancé even though it's our first time meeting each other. Alan answered with a wry smile. We're going to be family, so let's get along. Mom said, but I had a bad feeling about this. Then, at a meeting between both families, my parents and Kyle's family were very active participants. Even my mother-in-law seemed a bit taken aback by their enthusiasm. After the meeting, I apologized to my mother-in-law. But she had already heard from Alan. Don't worry about it, she said with a smile. I felt relieved. My mother-in-law is genuinely a good person. 2 months later, Alan and I got married. My family, who had always been indifferent to me, all attended. And after the wedding, they started contacting us frequently. Why don't you two join us for dinner sometime? We know a great restaurant, Mom would say over the phone. I suspected they were after Alan's money since he's a lawyer. But I wasn't falling for that. We're a bit busy, so we can't make it right now. We'll let you know when we can, I replied. All right, we'll be waiting. We're free anytime, Mom said, her voice full of enthusiasm. I was thoroughly disgusted. They didn't care about me. They just wanted to take advantage of my marriage to a wealthy man. After not contacting them for a while, Mom called again a few months later. When are you going to join us for dinner, Lucy? She asked in a cloying voice. Sorry, we're a bit busy, I said, ready to hang up. But then Mom said, we're planning to celebrate my half-century birthday. She continued, your father and I did raise you through high school, you know? It wouldn't hurt to show some gratitude. I could sense her growing impatience for us to treat her well. But she had a point. I had paid my own way through college, but my parents had supported me until then. Maybe it was time to show some gratitude as Mom turned 50. All right, we'll join the celebration. Really? We're planning a family trip, so come along. A family vacation, huh? I wasn't thrilled about it, but then I thought it could be a chance to spend some quality time alone with Alan. When I mentioned it to Alan, he agreed. So, we decided to join the family trip. When I told Mom, she was ecstatic. Could you handle the reservations? I'll send you a bunch of URLs for hotels and plans. What? Mom sent me a ton of URLs. Reluctantly, I checked them out. They were all for luxury hotels and high-end restaurants. How extravagant does she plan to be? I was annoyed by my family's endless demands, but figured this might be a one-time thing, so I went ahead with the bookings. When I called to say the reservations were complete, Mom was overjoyed. "I can't wait!" "Thank you!" Finally, the day of our half-century family vacation arrived. We planned a trip to Florida. We boarded the plane, and everyone seemed excited. Both my parents and Mr. and Mrs. Kyle seemed to be having a lot of fun. Upon landing, Alan and I told the family we'd go our separate ways. They tried to get us to shop for souvenirs with them, but I dodged that bullet and we went off on our own. We agreed to meet up for dinner at the high-end restaurant we'd booked. Time flew by as Alan and I enjoyed sightseeing. Then we went to a fancy restaurant. We arrived at the restaurant, where our parents and Kyle's family were already waiting. "You're late." "Well, we still have 10 minutes until our reservation." Suddenly, Mom and the others changed their tone. "We weren't talking to you." "What?" "We have business with Alan, not you." "Thank you for covering the cost of this fancy dinner and hotel stay." "What?" Alan was confused. Kyle and the others turned to me. "You're done here, Lucy." "What?" "You don't deserve any of this, you parasite." "What are you talking about?" They raised their voices. "Go home, you jobless loser!" "What's your deal, coming on this trip for free?" I was disgusted by my family's behavior. So, that's how it is. They planned to exclude me from the start. "You'll regret this." I decided to take action. I whispered to Alan. "Fine, I'll leave now," I said. Our parents and Kyle's family looked smug as they went into the restaurant with Alan. I quickly made other arrangements. Luckily, a good hotel had a cancellation, so I booked a room and checked in. I relaxed in a lounge with a great view, sipping coffee. Then Kyle called. "What did you do, Lucy?" "What do you mean?" "Alan's gone." "I have no idea." "You whispered something to him, didn't you?" "He's usually clueless, but sharp when it matters." "Sure, but it's no big deal." "I told him I'm staying at another hotel, so he should join me whenever." "You're kidding!" "Alan left before the food arrived and never came back. We had to pay the bill." "Well, it's Mom's special celebration, isn't it?" "Shut up! You'll get the bill later." Kyle hung up. Soon after, Alan arrived at my hotel. Grinning. Did it work? Were they mad? Yeah, they were furious. They're hopeless. You were going to pay for everything, and they still acted like that. Even Alan was dumbfounded by their behavior. We shook it off and enjoyed a meal at the hotel's upscale restaurant. We returned to our room and relaxed, waking up refreshed the next morning. We got up early and enjoyed some sightseeing. We didn't want to fly back at the same time as our parents, so we changed our flight to an earlier one. While waiting for our flight, Mom called, furious. "Hello? What's up? I thought you didn't need me for anything." "What's the meaning of this? Why is the hotel bill due at checkout?" "That's how I made the reservation." "Don't joke around. We can't afford $1,000 per person. If you enjoyed the luxury, you should pay for it. Unless you want to get arrested." "Stop it. You're so arrogant for a parasite." "You're the one who needs to stop. I was planning to cover all the expenses for this trip as a way to give back for all the years you've supported me. You messed up by kicking me out." "Wait, you were going to pay for all this?" "That's what I've been saying." "There's no way you could afford that." "Don't underestimate me." I work at the headquarters of a major corporation and even serve as a manager. I earn significantly more than Dad and have substantial savings. Really? Mom was speechless. But it didn't matter anymore. I decided to cut ties completely. I have to board the plane now, so goodbye. Wait, hold on. I hung up and blocked all their numbers. Luckily, they didn't know where we lived or worked, so they couldn't show up unannounced. But my foolish family did storm the law firm listed on Alan's business card. They caused a scene, demanding to see Alan and disrupting business. Kyle even broke some office equipment, leading to their arrest. After splurging on the family trip, they now had to pay damages and fines. Both Dad and Kyle were fired from their jobs. Now they're all working part-time jobs, living in poverty, and constantly fighting. Talk about getting what you deserve. Meanwhile, Alan and I continue to live happily. I'm pregnant. And we recently celebrated the birth of our beautiful daughter with my mother-in-law. I plan to cherish my family, Alan, my mother-in-law, and our daughter, and live a joyful, fulfilling life. My name is Olivia. I'm 35 and have been married to my husband Lucas for 7 years. We have a 5-year-old son, Thomas. Normally, it's just the three of us living a peaceful life, but I have one major grievance. It's the long vacations and Christmas when we go to Lucas's parents' house. Only his parents live there, but during the holidays, his sister and her family join us too. During these gatherings, which sometimes exceed 10 people, I'm expected to handle all the meal preparations. Because I'm married to the eldest son, everyone seems to think it's my duty. His sisters don't help me at all. On top of that, they leave their kids with me and go out to have fun. Even Lucas doesn't offer me any help, so as the holidays approach, I start to dread them. Just the thought of preparing meals at my in-laws is painful, not to mention the harassment I endure from Lucas's mother, Ava. From the beginning of our marriage, Ava has criticized everything I do. The first time we went to visit after getting married, she told me out of the blue, "Olivia, please prepare all the meals while you're here." I was shocked. It was my first time in their kitchen, and everything was thrown at me. In a panic, I checked the fridge, finding almost nothing. I had to start by shopping for groceries. "Do you want anything specific to eat?" I asked with a smile without showing my irritation. "Just make something delicious. Don't check with us every time, just get on with the cooking." Jackson, Lucas's father, seemed nice and calm, but I couldn't figure out what he really thought. Ava was always openly hostile towards me. Even when I casually asked Lucas about his parents' favorite dishes, "Anything's fine, don't worry too much about it," he always responds so casually. Lucas is originally unreliable, but since then, my distrust in him has only grown. In the end, I decided to make a safe choice and cook curry. As the smell of curry began to waft from the kitchen, Ava started her snide remarks. "Curry gives me heartburn. I'll have to take some antacid tonight." Without time to make anything else, I served the curry for dinner. Ava complained that the curry was too spicy, or that she preferred pork over beef. "Anyone can make a decent curry," she remarked, leaving the comment hanging in the air, yet she went for seconds. Meanwhile, Jackson ate without saying a word, but after he finished, he let out a deep sigh and left the room. While Ava's reactions are irritating, Jackson's sigh feels more condemning than her snide remarks. Dealing with just my in-laws' meals is stressful enough, but it gets even worse when Lucas's sisters and their families join. Harper's family consists of Lucas's sister Harper, her husband Ethan, and their daughter. Harper, in her appearance and manner of speaking, is frighteningly similar to Ava. Together, they hurl insults at me, making it feel like there are two Avas. When Harper comes to visit, she expects me to handle everything from cooking to making beds. Of course, she doesn't thank me, she takes it for granted. Ethan, usually quiet around his in-laws and Harper, becomes tyrannical when they're not around. "Go buy cigarettes," he'd demand, treating me more like a housemaid than family. Their daughter Emma, much like Harper, seems spiteful. "Olivia, we're out of juice." Then Ethan would join in, ordering, "Olivia, I'm out of beer. Bring some." Laughing foolishly, the two of them enjoy themselves. They are usually quiet in front of Harper. Probably because they're used to being scolded by her. They seem to let loose when at the in-laws. For me, who ends up doing all the work, it's unbearable. Natalie's family includes Lucas's sister Natalie, her husband Mason, and their son. Compared to the insidious Ava and Harper, Natalie is brighter and easier to talk to. She always comes to chat while I'm preparing meals. While it's nice to be approached so casually, Natalie doesn't help at all. At first, I used to listen to her seriously, but if she's not going to help, she's just in the way. Eventually, when I responded non-committally to her chatter, "Are you even listening to me?" she'd snap. Busy with work, I had to listen to Natalie's endless, meaningless stories about her husband's complaints or her in-laws' snide remarks. I wanted to vent to Natalie too, but I couldn't dare speak ill of the in-laws. As soon as Natalie realizes I'm not fully engaged, she'd tattle to Ava and Harper. Then I'd get scolded by both Ava and Harper. "Just because she's your sister-in-law doesn't mean you can ignore her. You should at least listen to her. Such a mean spirit, bullying your weaker sister." They'd freely insult me. I wanted to retort, "Who's the mean one here?" But I didn't have the courage. All I could do was endure the long vacations and Christmases. Even when I was pregnant, the treatment didn't change. "I worked as usual the day after I gave birth," Ava would brag, expecting the same from me. I heard from Lucas that Ava had been badly harassed by her mother-in-law too. It seems she's intent on making me experience the same misery. I wish she would stop returning the ill treatment she received onto her daughter-in-law. Thomas was born in December, so that year, we didn't go to the in-laws for Christmas. "Why don't you go home alone?" I suggested to Lucas. He replied grumpily, "It's boring to go back by myself, so let's skip it this year." He informed me that year, the siblings didn't stay at the in-laws for Christmas as usual. They left immediately. Without me there, nobody could handle the meal preparations, so no one stayed overnight. But from the next vacation onwards, the hellish treatment at the in-laws returned. Now, I had to take care of Thomas while preparing meals and accommodations. When Thomas dirted his clothes and I had to do laundry at the in-laws, "Since we're letting you use the washing machine, do our laundry as well." They started making me wash their laundry too. Seeing this, the sisters-in-law began piling their laundry on me as well. I ended up folding Ava's and her sister's laundry. Completely turned into a housemaid, they even dumped childcare on me. "Looking after one or two kids is the same. Please take care of my son," they'd say before leaving the newborn with me and going out to have fun with Ava and the family. Only Jackson stayed home, pretending not to notice anything and watching TV. I was shocked when even Lucas left with Ava and the others. From that moment, my affection for Lucas began to cool off. As I was taking care of the two babies, one of them would inevitably start crying. Then Jackson would explode in anger. "The noise is so loud, I can't hear the TV. Finally got rid of the annoying bunch, and I can't even watch TV in peace." Jackson, usually quiet in front of Ava and her daughters, didn't hesitate to complain to me. I hated his silent pressure on regular days, but him yelling like this was just pathetic. The men in this house only act tough when the women aren't around, then badmouth them behind their backs, especially Mason, who is amusing to watch because of his drastic two-faced nature. In front of Ava and the sisters-in-law, he's all smiles, serving food and drinks diligently. But when the women are absent, he's swapping nasty comments about their wives with Ethan. Not caring about how it affects me, his wife, they freely talk trash. "Why do we have to come here every vacation and Christmas? I feel the same. It's nothing but torture for us husbands. Moreover, just between us, my marriage isn't going too well, so next time I might not be here," they'd say, laughing uproariously. Whether they're joking or serious, they don't care that I'm listening. The conversation escalates. Honestly, my marriage isn't great either. My wife is too domineering, always looking down on me. They glanced around, and seeing it was just me, they began whispering. "My wife is just like her mother. Thinking about her getting even tougher with age is dreadful." Daughters do resemble their mothers, don't they? Recently, even her face is starting to look like her mother's, and it's creepy. Both of them were rolling on the floor, laughing at their own words. I began to wonder if Lucas also talked badly about me when I wasn't around. These two, laughing at such talk, would transform into entirely different people the moment Ava or the sisters-in-law appeared. They knew that if I told Ava or the sisters-in-law about their behavior, I would be the one accused of lying. That's why they felt free to speak ill of Ava and the sisters-in-law in front of me. Year by year, the workload dumped on me during the holidays at the in-laws grew heavier. Apart from meals, overnight arrangements, childcare, and laundry, now I was even tasked with picking up and dropping off Natalie's family. During a meal right before everyone was about to leave. "I'd like a beer, but I have to drive home, so maybe I should refrain," Mason mentioned. Hearing this, Ava chimed in. "From next time, let's have Olivia pick you up. That way, you can drink beer without any worries," she suggested to Mason. Mason, perhaps jokingly, agreed, but Ava took it seriously. "No, you don't need to go that far," he said. But cutting off his words, Ava commanded, "From now on, you will do the pickups." No one dared to object. In the car back home, even I, usually restrained, lashed out at Lucas. "I'm already cooking, arranging accommodations, taking care of the kids, and even doing everyone's laundry. Now I have to do pickups too." Lucas, taken aback by my anger, was at a loss for words. "Is there no limit to harassing your wife? How much more do they want to exploit me?" My anger was justified. The in-laws' house was in a snowy region, making Christmas visits challenging. Natalie's house was a 2-hour drive one way, but in heavy snow, it could take nearly double that time. I knew Ava would expect me to finish cooking and then go pick up Natalie's family. Exhausted and asked to drive in such conditions was absurd. I'm not accustomed to long drives, and surely Natalie's family would be terrified too. I was furious that Lucas, knowing this, didn't stand up to Ava. "I'm cutting ties with your family. I won't see Jackson, Ava, or your sisters ever again." I didn't want to see Ava or the sisters who did as they pleased. Hoping to calm my fury, he responded with a forced smile. "Totally fine. I'll let Mom and everyone know, so don't worry." When Lucas talks smoothly like this, he's usually just trying to appease the situation. But with his agreement, I finally felt freed from the in-laws' clutches. I marvel at my own patience over the past 7 years of marriage. That Christmas, I went on a trip with Thomas and my parents. It was the first time since Thomas was born that I spent Christmas with my parents. It's rare for us to be together for Christmas. Is it okay for Lucas to go back to his parents alone? Having shared my in-laws' harsh treatment with them, my parents were surprised by the trip. "It's okay. I have Lucas's permission, so he won't complain," I assured them, though I wasn't sure if Lucas had really talked to his parents. He had reluctantly agreed to cut ties with his family after my outburst, but I doubted his parents and sisters would accept it easily. They had been taking it easy so far, likely avoiding preparing meals themselves. However, they probably thought they could easily buy meals from the supermarket, so I assumed they weren't too worried. My parents, seeing their grandson Thomas after a long time, were overjoyed, and Thomas seemed to have fun too. When we visited the in-laws, I never had time to pay attention to Thomas, and I realized he must have felt lonely. Watching the three of them having fun, I completely forgot about the in-laws. Then, in the lobby of the luxurious hotel where we were relaxing, a familiar man walked in with a young woman on his arm. He resembled Mason, but he was supposed to be at the in-laws. The more I looked, the more he seemed familiar, and it appeared he noticed my stare. The man made a surprised face and quickly turned away. Likely because he was up to something shady. I pretended not to see and averted my gaze from the man. Just then, I received a call from Lucas. "Hello, what's up? Please, can you come to the family home right now? It's chaos here, nothing is prepared. Haven't we agreed that I wouldn't go anymore from this year?" I wasn't surprised, I had expected something like this. "I did mention it, but it seems the message didn't get across," he replied. I figured he hadn't really talked to his parents. I had already informed them that I wouldn't be able to pick up Natalie's family. Natalie had complained, but it seemed she had been pacified. Lucas was desperately trying to get me to come back. But I was more focused on the commotion and what sounded like Natalie's voice in the background. "Mason has run off with some woman. He said he was going to work, but when I called the office, they said he was off today." Hearing Natalie's words confirmed that the man I saw was indeed her husband. "Mason is at the hotel we're staying at right now," I responded. Lucas was taken aback by the sudden shift in the conversation. "What? My brother-in-law is there?" I decided to tell the truth, thinking it would serve Natalie right for how she had treated me. Natalie must have heard Lucas's voice, as she snatched his mobile phone and started shouting at me. "Mason is there! Where are you right now?" Natalie screamed, almost rupturing my eardrums. "Young and beautiful woman, high-class hotel," I replied. Next, Ava grabbed the phone and started yelling at me. "How dare you go to a hotel on your own? You think that's acceptable?" Even though they're shouting at me loudly, I can hear them. "I've discussed this with Lucas. I have his permission to not associate with you anymore," I replied, deliberately provoking her. Ava started screaming something incomprehensible. Then Harper snatched the phone. "We can't even have a meal without you. Please, somehow come back," Harper said, unusually polite, but I knew she only spoke like that when in trouble. In the background, Emma, Harper's ill-natured daughter, yelled, "Olivia! Hurry up and prepare the meal!" I couldn't help but laugh, realizing she was just echoing Harper's true feelings. The in-laws' house seemed to be in such a frenzy that I just hung up the phone. Since I had set my phone to reject calls, I didn't know what happened afterward until Lucas returned home. Seeing Lucas's reaction upon his return, I was prepared for the possibility of divorce. Worst case scenario, I was ready to make a life for Thomas and myself as an office worker. When Lucas returned from his parents' house, he apologized profoundly. "I now understand how hard it's been for you all this time. I'm truly sorry." Lucas had been burdened with preparing the Christmas meal, doing everyone's laundry, and taking care of the kids, especially Natalie's child, throughout the holiday. Natalie, after hearing from me about the affair, had tracked Mason down to our hotel, apparently catching him in the act. Indeed, when we were leaving, the hotel staff seemed flustered, and there was talk of a quarreling couple. Perhaps that was her. Everyone had complained about Lucas's cooking, having never done it before, and, fed up with their nasty remarks. "I'm cutting ties with this house too. I'm never coming back," he snapped. It seems Lucas has declared cutting ties as well. Hearing Lucas's declaration of disconnection, I felt relieved and confessed, "If you hadn't decided to cut ties with your family, I was planning to divorce you." Smiling as I said this, Lucas began to cry and apologized again. "I'm really sorry." Believing in his tears, I decided to keep striving together as a couple. From that year on, we decided to go on trips with my parents for Christmas. Both my parents and our family are delighted, and we intend to keep this tradition. Meanwhile, the in-laws' house doesn't seem to gather anyone anymore. Natalie and her husband divorced soon after. Natalie, having custody of the child, now had to work to support her life, leaving her with no long vacations or Christmases. Harper also realized that if the other siblings didn't return, she would have to prepare the meals herself, and didn't want to go through that hassle just to visit her parents' house. Left alone, the in-laws led a lonely life, unable to see their children or grandchildren. Ava, unable to harass anyone else, seemed to have turned her frustrations on Jackson, and I heard from Lucas that Jackson had left home. Lucas, deeply affected by the criticism of his cooking at the in-laws, has been cooking more often lately. Watching Lucas improve his cooking skills makes all that commotion feel like a distant